Hello Tech Pros, episode 169.
It's being true to who you are, being true to yourself. That's, in my opinion, probably the most motivating thing that can happen for someone.
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started. Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Jason Burt. Happy Monday, Jason.
Good morning, Chad. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Are you ready and motivated to get pumped up and face this week with a high level of energy?
Very excited. Mondays are always a great day.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that because honestly, sometimes for me, Mondays are not a great day. I don't know why it is. I mean, even that I'm working from home now and I'm doing my own thing and entrepreneurship and all that kind of stuff, and I have the flexibility in the hours, it still feels someday like some Mondays, I just wake up with the case of the Mondays and I don't want to get out of bed, let alone go do the thing and the podcast and the interviews and all that kind of stuff. So I'm glad, honestly, to have your energy and enthusiasm today. Because you know what, some days we can balance each other out, and maybe I'm at a low point and you can help me, and then maybe next week you're struggling and I can help you. So that's why we do this.
All right.
Awesome. Jason Burt owns Evolve Holdings LLC and has over 20 years of leadership and cultural change experience based on learnings from working with Toyota. Jason has worked in many industries and has been able to use his learnings to help guide many companies to increase profitability through implementation of the Toyota philosophies. Jason has worked in hundreds of companies in industries ranging from aerospace and metal fabricators to commercial farming and farm and distribution methods. And if Jason's voice sounds very familiar, that's because he was a prior guest on Hello Tech Pros. So audience, if you want to check that out, you can go to hellotechpros.com/9494, or if you're on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, wherever you're at, just look for episode 94. It's called Why Toyota Doesn't Manage from the Conference Room. And Jason, that was an awesome episode because I got a little sneak peek into the behind the scenes to the lean and to the agile methodologies that were really pioneered at Toyota from your perspective of, coaching and helping and mentoring and being part of that, where they're not in the conference rooms and the boardrooms, like trying to make decisions on, which widgets to pull. And so they're actually down there on the factory floor, like crawling around on their hands and knees up under machineries and parts and stuff, and be like, okay, show me what's wrong. Show me the problem. Okay, cool. Why do you think it's wrong? And, and being really an active participant in the process. And that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it was a fun episode. I enjoyed being on talking about that. Toyota's always, obviously all my experiences behind is tied to Toyota, so I usually bring that into just about all my discussions at some point in time. So,
well, they've had such a huge influence, since we're talking to Tech Pros, such a huge influence on not just the technology that we use, but really the processes behind working with the technology and building things, right? So we talked a lot about the agile methodologies and the lean methodologies in that episode, in episode 94. So audience, go check that out after this episode. But first, Jason, let's get into today's topic. Today, as you know, is Motivation Monday. And like I said at the beginning, someday, man, we just don't feel like getting out of bed. We don't feel very motivated. We get into these just kind of funk, right? Where we're just not feeling it and not in our groove, not in our zone. So if you don't mind, please share with our audience, please share with me your personal story of the time that you were completely unmotivated. And then we'll go through the steps of, what you did to turn it all around.
All right. Probably the most recently, I don't know, I think 2 years ago, my business partner in Evolve, me and him, we have several business ventures. I'm very entrepreneurial. I have 4 businesses right now, and Evolve's the main holding company where I do most of my consulting out of. But I got a call, and literally my business partner said, I'm moving on, and I'm not going to be your business partner anymore. And with that, it was not a good separation between the two of us. He took many of our very large clients, and really, all the things that we had been working on together, trying to build both the consulting company, and then we had multiple product releases that we were in the middle of. To see all that come to a kind of a screeching halt, it was a very, very difficult point in time, both financially and just from a motivation standpoint of where do I go next. I'd been out on my own for a few years at that point in time, and had a very good path going, a good strategy that we were working towards. And really a lot of that kind of came crumbling down, and it was a screeching halt. So that was probably the point in time where I was the least motivated, just trying to figure out, what do I do next? How do I move forward at that point in time?
Oh man, I feel you. Those any kind of conflict. I have a huge anxious response, right? My social anxieties from back in the day really kick into overdrive when I think about these situations, these type of situations where there's a lot of conflict, and especially when it's hurtful, right? It's really hurtful when somebody says, I'm out of this, right? I know we had agreed to things. I know we had worked on things. I know we were buddies and friends and whatever, business partners, but I'm going on to other things, and I don't want you part of those other things. That has to be just extremely painful.
It was. I mean, like you said, both on a friendship level and as a business level, there were a lot of things that, were done behind the scenes where a lot of our business ventures were undermined to his benefit. So from a pure friendship standpoint, you just sit there and question, so much that someone that you had worked side by side with for several years to take those kinds of steps. And and then from going to the motivation standpoint, as you're trying to move forward, dealing with lawyers and all the whole dealing with taking your business and separating it out and dealing with all that mess, trying to at the same time still move it forward and figure out what that new path is. It's very, very personal, business for us entrepreneurs. It's a very personal thing. So it makes it tough. And it makes it even more tough when it's your specific business and you have a very specific relationship with someone, in your business, and that happens. So, but I'm still here today. So we move forward.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm glad that you're still here today, and I'm so happy that you figured out how to move forward. But just like the tone in your voice and the emotions coming out, as well as the process and the lawyers and figuring out how to split stuff up, it sounds a lot like a divorce, right? Sounds like we're instead of divorcing from our marriage, we're dissolving this business relationship, which is like a contract and expectations and property in place, and there's hurt feelings and there's sadness and there's pain, and then there's the financial impact, and then you're left at the end of the day going, okay, what do I do now? Like, what's the next step? I thought we were going to be doing this for a long time. I thought this business was going to head in this direction and get to XYZ in so much amount of time, right? But now, obviously, things have completely changed overnight, and now what do we do? So what thoughts came to your mind, and what were you thinking about as you were going through this process?
Well, I guess probably the first thing that came to my mind was whether or not to move forward. We had built our consulting business up to a pretty high level where we were at a good spot financially, and we had a good consistent clients coming in. And at that point in time, when this happened, that's where I said I realized that there was a lot of undermining that had happened. A lot of those streams of clients that were coming in and our current clients, he had been behind the scenes setting that up to go with him. So when we separated, like you said, it's kind of like a divorce. When we separated, it left me with very little. So at that moment, right there at that point in time, there was not enough financial revenue coming in to support me and my family. So I had to sit there and make a decision really quickly. Am I going to rebuild this right now, this moment, or am I going to go get a job and go back to where I was 4 years ago? So that was a very tough thing for me. As an entrepreneur, there's many reasons why people leave the workforce and go become entrepreneurs and work for themselves. That's kind of the way we're wired. So
Right.
it was a difficult to even have that question rattling around in my brain saying, what is the right thing for me to do for me personally, but also for my family? So that's really kind of the spot where I was at, asking that question of myself. And ultimately, I sat down and, put my strategic hat on and said, okay, here's what I need to do. I don't want to go back. I don't want to get a job, per se, working for a company. I want to continue going on my own. So I need to, in a very short manner, I need to bring revenue up to X to be able to be sustainable, and I need to get X amount of clients. So I had to work very expeditiously about, reaching out and to all contacts and rebuilding at least part of that business so that I was sustainable, and then I could take it from there.
And Jason, so first of all, congratulations for making that decision to double down on the decision that you had made. In many cases like this, I don't know that there's a right and a wrong decision, right? It's what's best for you and what's best for your family. And at any given time, you never know if something's going to pan out, right? Every time we start a business, every time we try to make another sale, we try to gain another client, we never know if it's going to all just wash away underneath our feet, regardless of if there's something kind of underhanded and forces at work trying to literally tear our business apart, or if it's just, the economy and the nature of entrepreneurship, right? It's a dangerous business, and there's no expectations that it's going to last forever. But when things are good and when things are going great, then you're trying to figure out how to get to the next level, and the next level, and the next level. And then when it's all gone, and you're like, okay, I'm basically at ground zero. Do I want to go through the same process again, but this time do it alone, right? Do I want to go through the process of rebuilding my business and hustling and try to find clients and selling myself and just trying to basically rebuild the whole thing from scratch, but do it alone? Is that worth it? Or should I just buckle down and take another job? So what I heard out of that was your motivation for the journey of entrepreneurship, for being your own boss, for working your own hours, for doing your own thing, for owning this process, owning this problem, owning the result, whatever it came out with. That motivation was stronger than like your need to like pay the bills this month and just go find somebody who would give you some money and put you on salary.
Yeah, and I think, there's always some, as an entrepreneur, you can't be a complete dreamer, right? You have to have,
Sure.
you have to be grounded in some reality. So, I had to put a timeline on that, right? I couldn't sit here and say, hey, for the next 2 years, I'm just going to try and figure this out, because if the money's not there, I'm not going to do that to my family. So, that timeline, I had to put a pretty clear timeline as to, this is what makes sense for me, for the family, and start working it. And if I don't see results in X amount of time, then I'm going to have to make, there's some crossroads there that I'll have to make some different decisions. But I was, quite, surprised how quickly, reaching actually out to even some of those clients that had gone with him, I was actually able to steal a couple of them back very quickly. And able to go grab some new clients pretty quickly and get to that spot, where I didn't have to worry about the paying the bills thing, conversation, at that point in time. So, but there had to be a timeline there and kind of set the strategy in place and started moving forward. And I was very fortunate, like you said, entrepreneurship's not always a zero-sum game. It doesn't always work out the way you want. So, but in this case, I was able to make it happen and get back to where I was, and that worked out for me. So
awesome. Good for you. So how did you go through like the strategy session, right, in your head or on paper or whatever you did? Did you go to a coach, or did you just look at the finances and kind of figure out your burn rate? What was the process to put together the strategy for how you were going to rebuild your business?
Well, I think with any, strategy building process, I did that myself. I didn't reach out to anyone. But for this situation, we actually had three kind of key things going on at the time. We had our consulting going on, and then we were in the middle of two product launches. And I had to very quickly say, okay, so my number one goal is to get back to revenue generation. The product launches had to go on hold. So the two product launches, which I was able to retain the rights to, those completely got put on hold, stopped putting any money into them, and focused purely on the consulting side of the business. And, I had a longer term strategy as to where I needed to be able to fund the larger company with the product launches and everything. And then I had some shorter term goals that were very focused on where do I need to be to be stable financially, purely for paying the bills and for being able to maintain the lifestyle that I have going on. So, once I broke that down into the shorter term goals around just being able to pay the bills and be able to maintain some stable income, then I just started working it, going through every single contact I had, reaching out in every single way possible, trying to, just pure hustling and grinding it out and hard work to start making those phone calls and getting those contacts and clients in place.
So I don't know enough about you to know if this is an appropriate question or not. But for me, right, the business side of doing business is really stressful for me, right? The hustle, not meaning the hard work, but meaning like cold calling people and reaching out and all of that kind of stuff is very stressful for me, and I don't like this. It feels kind of salesy to me sometimes, right? And I feel very awkward about reaching out to people and say, "Hey, this is Chad. You haven't heard from me for a while, but I'm doing this new thing, and just wondered if you were looking for opportunities to get in front of my audience or take a look at my product or my services that I'm selling here or there." So was that something that you've always been comfortable with, or was this something that you're like, you know what, I don't like doing it, but I need to buckle down and just do it anyway?
Yeah, definitely the latter. That was probably the best luxury that we had built our company to when it was the two of us, as we had gotten to that point where we had enough people out there utilizing our services where the clients came to us to a point where we didn't have to really drive the cold calling and reaching out. We had enough equity firms. A lot of our business, and my current business now, comes through equity firms that are out buying companies, and they need me to help turn them around. So they're buying companies that are struggling, that need some lean focus and operational strategy, and I'll go in and I'll basically be the one that helps them turn them around along with their leadership that's in place. So we had a steady stream of clients continually coming from those equity firms. So I had to go out and rebuild those channels, and now I'm at a place where I've got some good solid channels, so I no longer have to do that hustle, that day-to-day cold calling, because that's not my strong suit. That's not where I want to, live most of my days. Mm-hmm. It's not kind of like what you said, it's not a comfortable spot.
Yeah.
I like doing the work. I like helping companies build strategy. I like turning around companies. And I like, the entrepreneur side of things as far as solving problems and building products. But the cold sales, that's not the space that I want to spend most of my time in. So that's where I had to get to, though. I was in a corner. I had to jump into that space and do it to get myself back to where I needed to be as part of the strategy.
So was this a situation where you were kind of were you in a fight, flight, freeze response mode, right? Where you're backed into a corner and you're like, okay, I need to either fight or run away or do something? Or is this just like a calm, cool, collected Jason where you're like, okay, let's do this. Like, this is not comfort zone, but I'm going to go into Terminator mode. I'm just going to go out and seek and destroy and find all this stuff.
I would say, probably all the above, right? I mean,
Right.
I think I hit just about every emotional state at some point in time. During the initial, I was very, I almost was in that freeze mode. I didn't even, I was like, how am I going to move forward? And then, I started putting my hat back on of how I help all these other companies rebuild strategies and get themselves out of the crisis that they're in, and said, okay, I got to just buckle down and do what I need to do. And once I sat down and came up with a very, clear strategy, and this is what I need to make happen, I'm very action orientated as far as, okay, let's make these decisions and let's see how they turn out, and let's quick get some feedback. So once I got into that mode where I was, very rapidly taking action and getting feedback as to whether or not the strategy was working, that's when I'm able to calm down and say, okay, I'm going in the right direction or I'm not, and I need to adjust. It's that Toyota approach of problem solving, of saying, how do I quickly try something and see whether or not it's being effective or not. And that's where I was able to, kind of, I wouldn't say relax, but be a little bit more calm and strategic with my approach. So.
Yeah, I love that. The need and ability to fail quickly, right? So I know that we're going to make a lot of mistakes, but you know what? I just need to start moving. I need to start publishing. I need to start calling. I need to start doing as much as I can do. And some of them are not going to work and others will. So once I see what doesn't work and what does work, then I can start to make pivots and changes and evolve with the needs of what's going to work, what's going to help me move this thing forward and get it off the ground. But if you sit there, and what I have tended to do many, many times in my past, and I still struggle with today, honestly, is this analysis paralysis where I get frozen up, right? I absolutely freeze up, and I'm just like, what do I do? What do I do? Do I do this, or do I go right? Do I go left? Do I call this person or not? Which is better? If I wanted to contact Jason right now, do I call him? Do I text him? Do I reach out on social media? Like, what do I do? What do I do? And the more I think about that stuff, instead of actually just, just make a command decision, do the thing, and get it over with, I'm never going to get anything done by worrying about it so much.
That's right.
Well, yeah. Jason, in just a moment, I want to ask you about some of the problems that you see with other companies that get stuck in your consulting businesses. You're going into these places that are having problems. They've had their own internal crisis, and now they've gotten bought out, which can be, for many of the employees or many of the founders who are still there, but now they have a new boss, right? Just as emotional as their business partners splitting up and dissolving the business and so forth, and how you coach them on what steps that they need to take and what strategies they need to implement. But first, we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Minio Cloud Storage. Minio is a cloud object storage server for developers and DevOps written in Go. The Go programming language is the emerging language of choice for modern cloud infrastructure projects, and it allows Minio to be highly concurrent and lightweight. Minio is Amazon S3 compatible, built with microstorage architecture in mind, but at its heart, Minio is simple, scalable, and supported by a passionate developer and user community. In episode 89 of Hello Tech Pros, I talked with A.B. Periasamy, one of the founders of Minio, about the importance of community support and recruiting software developers who are as passionate about their product's code as artists are of their art. Check out that episode at hellotechpros.com/89 and check out Minio Cloud Storage at minio.io. That's minio.io. Okay, we're back with Jason Burt. Jason owns Evolve Holdings LLC and has over 20 years of leadership and cultural change experience. We've been talking to Jason about a really difficult time in his life and in his business where the business partner of 2+ years said, you know what, I'm out. Peace out, yo. I'm taking these clients and I'm done with this relationship. I'm done with this business and I'm going to do my own thing. And Jason was at this point where naturally, right, you kind of freeze up and you go, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? What do I do? I'm not used to selling anymore, right? Because we've built the business up and it's being very successful and it's kind of got this momentum and it just does its own thing. And I'm used to working on this other stuff. Is it worth going back to the drawing board? Is it worth going back to the foundation, grassroots, like hustling and selling and networking is it worth all that, or did I just go find another job? And so Jason decided that, you know what, I need a strategy, I need a timeline in place, and I need to start reaching out and talking to people and build my consulting business back up. So Jason, once you did that, right, your business now is consulting and helping other businesses in times of crisis, like when they get bought out, right? So firms are struggling, they're not performing as well, and there's a takeover. Somebody else comes in and says, yeah, we're going to buy up all your assets, we're going to buy up all your company, and now we're going to send in Jason to implement all of his lean findings and lean consulting methods to really determine like what's going on here. What are some areas that we can really focus on, both on the management side and the process side, and work things out, make it a lot smoother and a lot better. So first of all, what are some of the most common problems that you see over and over again as you go into these situations?
You know, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, obviously, at the highest level, there's always this financial struggle. I mean, that's why they're always there. And quickly we have to identify, you know, where is the financial gap? You know, every company's a little bit different. Is it operational effectivity? Is it the revenue itself? Did they lose some big customers? So, you know, is it a top line problem? Is it a cost problem? Is it a strategic problem where they're not going after the right, you know, types of customers or the right market niche that they need to be in? So, you know, every company looks a little bit different. But we need to, you know, when I go into a company, we start at the very high level, strategy level. Hopefully they have a strategy in place. If not, we go to the drawing board and literally start from scratch, understanding the customers and trying to break down who they are as a company, what they're trying to accomplish, and then seeing how effective they're being at solving those problems for those customers. And you know, eventually the problems or the gaps show, you know, and we start seeing that, well, in order to, you know, be able to make this widget for a customer, they're ordering 10 at a time, and the way that you're currently processing them, you're processing 10,000 at a time. And, you know, there's a ton of costs associated with that, with inventory and space on the floor, or many companies will be in, you know, 2 to 3 times the amount of floor space that they actually need, and that overhead is hurting them from a financial standpoint. Or the products that they're making, they're meeting the customer's needs at a very low level, but their competitors are hands above them as far as their capability for their products. So their products aren't selling as well. So we need to do some product development and actually increase their capability on their products. So every company is different, but it's all about that problem-solving process and understanding at a strategic level where are we trying to get them, and then breaking it down into all the different functional groups, whether it be operations or finance or supply management, sales, and understanding where those gaps are so that we can start problem solving and fix them within the company.
So it makes total sense, right? The process, the structure makes total sense, but being an employee or being a manager at one of these companies, I would imagine that it is a very stressful time, right? A very stressful process, because there's all these strangers coming in, right? They don't know Jason. Jason's coming in, tell them, hey, your product has some gaps and you need to restructure it, right? Financially, you guys have been struggling for a long time, and that's why this acquisition just happened. And so we're going to come up and really change things up. So do you see anything on the culture side of it, like the attitudes, the behaviors, the language, the communication, the what's going on in leadership and what's going on like down in the trenches that needs to be addressed, as well as the process stuff?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I see is many of the times that the takeovers happen or a company gets bought out, there's this initial kind of decision that'll be, oh, let's be very quiet with what's going on. Let's not disclose a lot of information. My coaching and counseling to all the companies that come in or the companies that are bought out and the leadership teams is full disclosure. You know, we're talking about motivation. Probably one of the least motivating things that can happen for a company is not knowing what's happening. Mm-hmm. That fear of what could happen. So when we're developing strategy, when we're taking over a company and we're saying, hey, you guys were losing money, disclosing all that stuff and why it's happening, where the gaps are, what we can do to fix them. That's one of the key ways from a culture standpoint to start motivating that company and the people that work there again, right? So if they know, here's what we need to do, here are the things we need to fix, this is what's going to get us back to a better spot, that's going to save the company or, particularly save jobs or get us financially viable. Those are the things that can motivate them. If we continue to be very secretive about, what's happening, that fear, all those questions that enter people's minds that on a daily basis, those are the things that are going to completely shut that company down and not allow it to move forward. So from a culture standpoint, as much transparency as possible to what's going on is the best mode, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, because I try to make the best out of every situation. Last year, 2015, throughout a 12-month period, 11 months and 2 weeks, I went through 3 different layoffs. So I was at one job for 13 years, the next job for 5 weeks, and the next job for 8 months. And in each one of those situations, the company had massive layoffs due to financial problems. And it was, either bad decisions or bad market or bad timing or what have you. But in each one of those situations, I kind of saw something different from the perspective of the transparency in what's going on. Not just what's going on with me and how I'm being affected, but also the other people that are still there, right, at the end of the day. And are they being told what's going on? Did Chad just disappear, right? Did 50 people just disappear today? Or is there an issue and a systemic problem in the company that we're addressing, and here's how we're addressing? Yes, layoffs or yes, reduction in force is one option, but here's some other methods and other things that we're doing, and here's how bad the problem is or how bad it isn't. And I'll tell you honestly, some of the companies did really good at it, and others not so much, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's, I think people want to know what's going on. They may not like what they hear. It may not be, a positive message, or anything, but knowing what's going on, knowing the issues, people intuitively want to try and help. They want to try and fix and support the company in most cases. So that transparency can only help. I truly don't believe that transparency will ever negatively hurt a company if done right.
So, Jason, as we kind of pull this whole conversation back to the beginning and the story that you shared about your business and your personal struggle with, what do I do in this circumstance? As we think about your final words of wisdom, and think about the audience here, that whether they're in a struggle right now or, gosh, if we live long enough, we're all going to have these periods where we have to make this decision on, do we fight for what we want or do we just take the next thing that comes along? What is your advice to them or your final words to wisdom? And then afterwards, we'll share the best way that we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
I think as final words of wisdom, I think the thing that I have, learned over the years, especially as I worked in many different companies and industries, and realized that, although they were great companies, realized that it wasn't for me being an employee, and that I had this, entrepreneur side of things where I wanted to go do my own thing. It's being true to who you are, being true to yourself. That's, in my opinion, probably the most motivating thing that can happen for someone, is being true to themselves and saying, this is who I am and this is the path I'm going to go down. There's a band called the Avett Brothers. It's one of my favorite bands, and my favorite quote in the world that I use all the time with my kids, with myself, and business is from one of their songs, and it's "Decide what to be and go be it." And I think that quote is so powerful because I think we all have the power to say, this is who I am, this is what I want to be, who I want to be, how I want to act, and we have the power to just make that happen if we want it bad enough. And I think for me, that's, what helped me with that decision where I was, backed into a corner. It's no, this is who I want to be. This is where I want to go. This is the path I want to take, and I need to fight for it and make it happen. And I think, for people that aren't feeling motivated right now, I think that's a question that you should ask yourself. Are you doing what you want? And if not, you have the power to make that change. You have the power to make a different decision and do something different. So, words of wisdom.
Awesome. Great stuff. Very, very powerful quote and very powerful context around it. Jason, where can we reach you if we want to talk to you about stuff?
You can go find me on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. My website, EHIP Consulting or Evolve or EHIP LLC. Probably the easiest way is just go to Google and type in Jason Burt Lean, and there'll be lots of ways to get a hold of me that pop up. So that's the easiest thing to do.
Awesome. Or go to hellotechpros.com/169 to get the show notes for this episode and all the ways to contact Jason. Or let's see, what was the last one? hellotechpros.com/94 to get to the other episode. Jason, thank you so much for joining me again, a two-timer, joining me again on Hello Tech Pros. You know what? I really value your transparency in this situation where it's painful. Like, this is real life grown-up stuff that we're talking about here. This is not easy. And so many times we focus on the technology, we focus on, the process and the business and the stuff, and we don't think about the feelings of how people are dealing, like struggling internally with whatever's going on in their life, whatever's going on in their business, whatever's going on in their career. And I think it's really good to just understand that, we're all human. We all go through this stuff. And there are positive ways that we can address it. And then there's what other people do. But in this case, Jason, you've shared a very positive way for us to address and tackle these situations, and I just really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Chad. I enjoyed doing another edition of Hello Tech Pros. It's always a good time talking with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Tech Pros, when this happens to you, regardless of if it's a business dissolution, if it's a layoff, if it's something tragic that's really affecting you at work, really affecting you at home. I love Jason's quote. Mine, the one that I always go to over and over, is Gandalf from Fellowship of the Rings. I actually just watched it again last night, so this part is fresh in my mind, right? When Frodo is struggling with, why am I here? Like, why do I have the ring? Why am I involved in this stupid fellowship and everything's jacked up and the world has gone crazy all around me? I wish this wouldn't have happened. I wish the ring never came to me. And Gandalf says, you know what? So do all good men who live to see such days, but that's not for us to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. So make that decision. What do you want to be? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be right now? Be honest with yourself first and foremost, and then be honest and transparent with everybody else. And then make action. Take action like Jason did and make it happen. Put a plan together and implement it. You've been listening to Jason Burt, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/169. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Motivation Monday, but tomorrow my featured guest and I talk about productivity. On Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. Then next week, we start it all over again with Motivation Monday. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.